Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming out to this Housing Committee public forum to talk about housing trusts. We are, yeah, we have a pretty short-ish presentation, and then are mostly, it's going to be mostly discussion among the people here, hopefully. And I'm going to introduce Bob Goudreau, who is going to talk about sort of what the Housing Committee has been doing and sort of like why we think that this is an important thing for the town to do. And then I'm going to talk about some examples around the state just to get our imaginations working or to see what other people are doing. And Margaret is then going to jump in and help us coordinate a follow-up meeting if we are headed that way, and then it's going to be an open discussion. That's the scope of this meeting, and I'm going to hand it over to Bob now to talk about why Harpswell needs a housing trust.
Good evening, all. First, I'd like to introduce myself, Bob Goudreau, but other fellow committee members, Sean Rule, as you just spoke to, as our chair, Steve Norman, Courtney Snelling, Deb Foster, Cheryl Garrett, are committee members currently. And we continue to work forward for our community. And I'd like to speak to you tonight from the Housing Committee as a member and a past member of the Affordable Housing Working Group that was in existence prior to this. I'm excited for this opportunity to speak to you this evening on the future of Harpswell Land Housing Trust. Key subjects I'd like to talk about are the missing opportunities for donations, the missing middle, the definition or somewhat definition that we've been trying to work forward, and the missing workforce housing. To start off on the missing opportunities for donations within town over the past 4 years of existence of the Affordable Working Group and today's Housing Committee, approximately 4 years plus, we've had partial opportunity to take a home and land that could have been developed into a 2-unit and a possible additional ADU unit, providing 3 housing units. We've seen multiple foreclosures that we've not been able to tap. We've seen land sales that could have been opportunities. And the last, but probably difficult to discuss, but the old Harpswell Community School that still sits vacant. These are all opportunities. They're all different, but opportunities exist, and we have no entity to absorb them or oversee them or the possibility of housing solutions within the current town. Every opportunity is different and are complex real estate transactions, but the Housing Committee, these become normal over time. Yes, Housing Trust will have many hats and multiple assignments to overcome, but it is not all going to happen tomorrow. And it is about what is doable. Many chances that the apple will occur and some will make sense and others will have another day. The Housing Trust will have structure, compliance, fundraising, gifting, and will create sustainability into the future. This must be a very creative group of members. Wow. You could be going to be part of a startup, and what an exciting opportunity. I'd like to speak now to the missing middle. The Affordable Housing Working Group came to realize very quickly 4 years ago that the focus solely on affordable or low-income housing was not a direction that could or would make sense. The Affordable Working Group instead focused on the reality of our community at a 140 to 160 average median income or a price range relative to roughly $350,000 to $650,000 due to costs of land, existing home values, available income, limitations to water and septic, and no town center. The community has spoken within many forums that sons and daughters of the current owners can't afford to live in Harpswell, and businesses have trouble finding workers. The focus hardened around finding ways to obtain opportunities for our young families to buy modest starter homes and our seniors to downsize within is something obtainable in our missing middle conundrum. Think about it. The lack of varied demographic by age means fewer emergency volunteers, trades workers, strong fishing integrity in industry, the, markets for the food industry, and also the rental industry or market, and the caregivers. So without a demographic invariance, we are susceptible. The Affordable Housing Working Group and currently the Housing Committee has focused on 2-unit conversions, adding ADUs or accessory dwelling units, reviewing townhouse and duplex housing zoning, land use and zoning, and seek to understand the impact of current state mandates like LD 1829, 997, and 427. 1829 creates additional subdivision units from 3 to 5 without planning board review. LD 997 is more about, I believe it's parking restrictions and limitations, and I'm suspect on addressing 427 right off the bat. Sorry. The working to help Harpswell Conservation comprehensive plan get approval, addressing possible mission statements for the Housing Trust, and Housing Committee will be available to assist the future Housing Trust at all times. Let me speak to the missing workforce housing. The state obviously creating housing should and must be a cooperative process with select board, town planner, planning board, housing committee, Harpswell community, and the future housing trust, with support to create dense diversity at both ends of our life cycle. Harpswell will become ever more will become ever more senior-centric community without an elementary school to attract young families. Providing housing for workforce or missing middle is necessary to keep Harpswell the kind of community that has been cherished for so many years. The growing lack of diversity in age and ideas puts the community we love at risk. Seniors wish to downsize but have nowhere to go. Harpswell loses intellectual capital when they move out of town. Without the ability to keep our youth and seniors in town, Harpswell we will all value and love will become one-dimensional retirement community. Please, we can't let this happen, and we need to address this so that youth and seniors have opportunity and make Harpswell a greater diverse community. I'd like to turn it back over to Sean at this point, and we'll be available for questions later. Thank you.
Hey, thanks, Bob. Yeah, just to kind of pull out the main points there. We have in town missed serious opportunities for preserving access to affordable housing, various land opportunities or buildings that probably were available for donation that we weren't able to access because there was nobody to donate it to, basically. That's the missed opportunities. We really can't afford to miss any more in town, I think. And but without an entity to like to absorb these things or manage them or receive them, they're not available to continue to support the town. Yeah, and the missing middle, I mean, we can look around town and there are fewer and fewer families in town, and it's not a super strong foundation for a town to be building on. And also, like, the fishing communities and sort of the, all of the different businesses in town are having a hard time getting people to drive the, hour or whatever down to work, and people can't really afford to live closer. So these are all reasons that we're talking about why we need a housing trust. And I guess if we could, now we could talk about what it is, what a housing trust is, which maybe we should have done it the other way around, but this is the way we did it. So housing trust is a nonprofit. It is not a town entity. It is not like something that the town of Harpswell would be doing. It is a nonprofit made up of members of the community. Usually focused on providing or preserving safe, affordable homes. Housing trust is also, they're often called housing trusts. They are also sometimes called community land trusts. It's a little bit confusing because land trusts people think of as like owning forests or whatever. But the community land trust is what housing trusts often actually are, organizationally. This is a little bit in the weeds, but it is different, to my understanding, than a housing trust fund, which is a fund that is often set up by towns to support affordable housing. So the terms kind of like swirl in on each other and a little bit tough to keep straight, but we're going to be talking about a housing trust mostly. And I guess the other way that housing is done sometimes is a housing authority, which is something that Brunswick has and Topsom as well. Those are like quasi-governmental bodies that are part of the town, but also a little bit separate. That's also not what we're talking about here. We are talking about a independent, nonprofit organization, housing trust. This was explored earlier this year in a radio story on Maine Public, where they had a bunch of people who are currently running housing trusts around the state have a discussion about it. Those, as you can see on the map here, they're kind of all over the place. There's a little over a dozen housing trusts in Maine right now, from I think Kennebunk to maybe like Farmington, and there's one in Bucksport. Mount Desert. Some on the islands, which are, anyways, they're all over the place. It's a lot of people who are have come to a similar conclusion that they need some entity like this in their town. One of the ones that feels like a little bit similar for me is the Island Housing Trust, which is on Mount Desert, and it's a pretty expensive place to be, and also same problem where to the people who are working in these communities like often have to drive super far, know, to be able to go work on the island. So I'm gonna a little bit use the different examples from around the states to talk about the different things that housing trusts can do. In this case, I'm pointing to the way that a housing trust can support home ownership for people. The way that they do it, you know, the percentages and numbers can be kind of in the weeds. The 160% area median income is like over the federal definition of affordable housing. And I can't remember, it's like pretty close to $100,000 in Maine. So anyways, for this housing trust, for them to like offer the housing that they are building or preserving to different people, there's like you know, you have to apply. You have to meet the requirements that they have laid out, which is like, you have to be a year-round resident, you have to work on island, you have to be able to finance through a bank, like, and you have to agree to their set of covenants. The covenants exist to preserve long-term affordability. Basically, a lot of the covenants are like, you can't flip the house kind of thing, you know, like, they're trying to get people, long-term residents, who are gonna contribute to the community and the stability of their town and island. This particular trust, you know, asks that the applicants go through a first-time home buyers course, which is, you know, just to make sure that everybody knows what they're getting into, basically. But yeah, so that's like, the Island Housing Trust has had some land donated, they've built some houses, they've had some houses donated that they've rehabbed, and they make them available via lottery, basically. That appears to be pretty standard for housing trusts in Maine, because there's just way more demand than there are houses. Yeah, so homeownership, this organization helps build houses, and it helps get people who can't otherwise afford, you know, like a full market rate house into a house in a pretty expensive place to be. And the way that they keep it affordable is that it's not a vehicle for investment, basically. You can't cash out money from your house. You can like recoup your expenses, you can recoup your upkeep, or if you do improvements, like this is all factored in, but because you can't make money off of your home sale at the general market rate, it keeps the housing prices lower. Yeah, so home ownership, this is one thing that a housing trust can do, is help get people into reasonably affordable, right, as you can see by the picture, very regular single-family homes. Like, yeah, there's a million houses that look like that around. Yeah, so then I'm going to talk a little bit about the Community Land Trust, which is kind of the same thing. This is the oldest one in Maine. They've been around for 46 years. The Covenant Community Land Trust, 47 years, I guess now, 48, I don't know. So, whereas the last one was using covenants and sort of like deed restrictions, the Community Land Trust tends to, like, does a lot of the same stuff. They build houses, they get stuff donated to them, they rehab houses. They've built like a handful of little neighborhoods in Orland and Bucksport and a couple of other towns around there. But what the Community Land Trust does is the land trust owns the land that the structures are sitting on, and you own the structure. So you are buying a house, but you aren't buying the land underneath it. It's sort of like a condo, basically. This is how condos work. It's not super, it's not like a wild invention, but in separating that, like, it means that neither party has like free reign to do whatever they want on the place. You know, so that there's like, yeah, you own your home, you don't own the land underneath it, is the community land trust model. The way that you own your home is usually via a long-term transferable, renewable 99-year lease is the current structure. So it's basically the same as owning. Your kids can inherit it. It can be passed on. Usually when you sell it, it varies land trust to land trust, but you usually just start a new lease then. Yeah, and so instead of having covenants built in ahead of time, the community land trust has a basically like resale profit formula that they work from, which is like acknowledging that you need to be able to get some money back for all of the work that you put into the place. You know, you need to keep up with inflation if you go to sell. So you're not losing money by being there, but you also don't get, you know, Harpswell's average house price went from like $380,000 or $400,000 to $900,000 or $1 million in the past 5 or 6 years. Like, nobody, very few people did $600,000 worth of work to their house in that, you know, to make that value change happen. And so this is saying, you get to be, you know, we want people to be here, and we want people to continue to be able to be here who might not be able to keep up with the swings of yeah, wild real estate inflation.
Sean, how does a land trust work with the water and septic and road that rural? Oh, thank you. Can you hear me? Mm-hmm. How does a land trust work with, in a rural community like Maine, with the septic and the water and the roads?
Yeah, like who owns that, basically? Yeah. So I did say houses, but I guess I also put improvements in there. So it's, yeah, the things are owned by, and the land, the actual physical land is owned by the land trust. The improvements are usually.
Any working system on the land is owned by the homeowner?
Yeah, that's my understanding. It can be kind of any different way. Like, these are all things that people made. They tend to be that way. They tend to be that.
Could be anyway.
Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, condos sometimes have like, you know, or even there's a lot of places in Harpswell where there's 2 or 3 houses that share a septic or whatever. That's, I don't know if that's currently allowed. Margaret does, but yeah. Anyway, okay, so yeah, that's community land trust, which is ground lease, which is a little bit different than ownership. Yeah. Yeah. So rental housing, this is a thing that housing trusts can also do. The Freeport Housing Trust has a ton of rental housing. They have family units and also senior specific stuff. We're probably not going to be able to do that in town here, and you know, they're on town infrastructure. These are like kind of apartment complexes a little bit, but it is set up as a housing trust, and they do rent affordable units to people in Freeport. There are some other ones like, yeah, on some of the islands, they are working to convert donated buildings into, basically, mostly they're doing rental houses. It's less like apartment building, and it's more like, here's a house that's going to be rented instead of sold. And it's still going to go to provide housing for year-round residents. It's still going to, you know, income qualifying people, depending on what, you know, 160 in some places, 120, whatever. There's different numbers that income qualification happens at, but yeah, the islands seem to be taking houses and turning them into single-family rentals. And just like, it's not a housing trust, but the Holbrook Foundation in town here rents 2 apartments. We already have a nonprofit in town that is a housing rental provider. This is a thing that can happen, you know. Yeah, there's a picture of one right there. Yeah, and then I guess next. This is one that I didn't find as much information about. It's talked about in the main public story some. Housing trusts can help people access mortgages where they wouldn't otherwise be able to. Freeport mentions that they have basically like low interest forgivable loans for people to help qualify for like the chunk that they're missing to be able to buy a condo or whatever. That so they help people get over the hump to be able to get into something. You know, that's usually through like grant assistance, and they help people do paperwork. Some places are doing, yeah, instead of a supplemental loan, they're doing a down payment loan or whatever, which, you know, doesn't have to be forgivable, but that can be the difference between somebody being in a place and not. From the main public story, this is becoming less common. The people who are close to being able to afford something are much fewer and farther between. Like the gap, there aren't that many people where they're $5,000 short, and that's just like not where we find ourselves very much anymore. So this is a thing that could happen with a with a housing trust, but it seems to be less common. This isn't exactly my world. I don't know tons about it, but this is one thing that happens sometimes through a housing trust mechanism. Okay, yeah. So to go back through, well, housing trusts, what can they do? They can either sell houses to people, they can rent houses to people, or they can sell houses to people, or they can sell the rights to develop the ground lease model. That's like kind of a third thing. And then sort of a little bit this fourth one, but not that much by my read. Yeah, so sell a house, sell the rights to a house, or rent. Those are some options to help some people be in places that they, yeah, can't afford otherwise. And it also helps, helping people stay in their communities helps stabilize communities and helps them be more, yeah, more tight-knit, more productive, more supportive of each other. This goes all around. But yeah, that's mostly that's my 10 minutes on what a housing trust is. We have many links. Housing trusts are quite supportive of sharing their documents. It seems like everywhere is different. we're not going to be doing the same stuff that makes sense in Waterville, probably. There aren't triple deckers here that there's not very much like abandoned lots. But each town, each community, each trust comes up with what works for this area, what works for this town, what works for this community that we are trying to support here. Yeah, this is the What is a Housing Trust. I'm going to hand it over to Margaret to sort of like do some of the logistics stuff about that, and then we'll go back to a conversation if folks are interested.
Hi, everybody. I have to run to another meeting, so I'm just going to jump in here and interrupt the flow of the program. A couple administrative things. There's a bunch of materials on the back table here. The only one that's new from the last meeting is a list of housing trusts in Maine and the links and the locations. It's similar to what's on the slideshow for those people on Zoom. We also have a bunch of documents here that were here last time. All of those, just like last time, are available on our website on the Housing Committee page on the Town of Harpswell website if anybody wants to look at them. If you're on Zoom, if you want to put your name and email address in the chat, I'll add you to like a little list, and someone will email you about the next future Housing Trust meeting. I have a list that I will circulate here in the room in just a minute for anybody who wants to make sure that they get contacted for a future meeting. But if you already got contacted by me, you don't need to put your name down again. I was thinking, if everybody's feeling comfortable with this, we could set up a time. We can talk about setting up a time for everybody to meet at a future date that's not facilitated by the Housing Committee. So we were kind of thinking at the end of this meeting, we kind of get everybody's name and contact info, and we all get really excited about a housing trust, and then we send you all on your way to discuss things at a future meeting. And I'm happy to set up that meeting, but I just, does everybody feel good about that, comfortable with that? All right, Aaron's now nodding his head. So I was thinking one of the first 2 weeks of February, like maybe if Monday nights work for people, we could do like Monday the 9th that evening. We could all meet at the Orrs Island Schoolhouse. If that, Housing Committee? All right, you want to do 5, 6, 5?
Yeah, 5.
All right. 6.
Maybe we'll get a couple more people.
All right.
Coming back from work.
So we'll plan on this. Everybody will meet for this future housing trust February 9th at 6 p.m. at the Orrs Island Schoolhouse. If it's a snow date, we'll email everyone and reschedule. But that way everybody on Zoom and in the meeting can know where you guys are going to meet next. And you will be set free to start your housing trust. Lastly, I, as a town employee, cannot continue to be the administrative support for this endeavor. So I'm hoping if somebody wants to volunteer just to help coordinate to get us to the next meeting, and then once you guys get there, you can all figure out what your roles might be. But if anybody wants to volunteer to kind of get us from this meeting to the next meeting, if not, I've pre-volunteered Courtney.
That's just to send out the stuff, right?
Yeah, just to email out a notice about the next meeting, and then you guys can discuss everyone's roles from there. Any volunteers? All right. You're a girl.
Well, I won't be at the meeting, but I can send out the
Yeah.
things.
Cool.
I'll be in Houston. So.
All right. All right. Well, that concludes my administrative portion. If anybody has any other administrative questions, I'm going to scoot out, and you can ask these guys, and they'll get the questions to me.
There is something I would just like to say to folks who might be interested in becoming part of a housing trust. The Island Institute has set up something called the Housing Coalition, They have Zoom meetings. I've been going to them. What is really cool about it, there are a lot of people in various either housing committees or housing trusts. Everybody's really helpful. It's like, gee, what did you do? We did it this way. Oh, we do it this way. We'll share anything with you. So I think that would be, if you're going to go ahead with this, it's nice to know that people are approachable because, when they start out, nobody knows anything. But they've done things. And, these are people, many of them are in rural areas. Some of them are islands. There are a couple of islands with water and septic. But, people are dealing with the kinds of things that we have going on here in Harpswell. So I just wanted to throw that out there because that would be something that, it's easy to get on the list. They have the Zoom meetings, and it's just very helpful.
And we can email out that link.
Yep.
Okay. All right, I'm going to pass things back to Sean. Thank you guys very much. And again, let me know if you have any questions for me. Thanks, bye.
Yeah, great. Excuse me. Do we have any questions coming in from the internet? Any comments?
Yes, good evening. My name's Neil Frothingham. May I speak?
Sure, yeah.
So my family has owned property in Harpswell since 1967, making us relative newcomers to the community. And I have spent the past 30 years running nonprofits that develop, own, and operate affordable housing, and I consult in the field. And I've been following this issue from afar out of my family's love and connection to Harpswell. And one of the things that I would observe is housing, be it nonprofit housing or for-profit housing, functions best at scale. And the kind of scale that you've talked about in this meeting is not going to work for a housing trust. It's not going to spin off the income and revenue to staff itself, hire the professional services that it needs to file its tax return, all of those kinds of things that go with creating a ownership entity. And typically a community land trust needs 200 units of housing in it to sustain itself.
Can I ask where you are having your professional experience that's pulling these numbers from? Yeah.
Oregon, Washington, the state of New Mexico, Idaho, and a little bit of consulting work in Maine.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, that certainly doesn't appear to be the case for many of the smaller community land trusts that are existent in Maine. Perhaps there are, I would be curious to hear.
What do you think would work, Neil?
So I have talked actually some of the land trusts that have been mentioned in this evening's presentation and to some of their board members. And so what winds up happening when an issue for the owner of the property comes up, which is the land trust, because they don't have any staff, they have associated organizations that they've contracted with to develop the housing or something like that. And so they wind up shoehorning in and paying those organizations and that staff on somewhat of an ad hoc basis, issue by issue, to deal with something. I mean, say, for example, the well and the septic system are owned by the land trust and operated by the land trust. What happens if that fails? No volunteer board member wants that call at 2:00 in the morning.
Yeah, we're not proposing anything of the sort, I don't think.
No. Yeah. But just, I guess what I'm saying is the way that you would get around that, I think, is to partner with one of the existing land trusts to have them be the ownership entity and develop a property in Harpswell. there is nothing in many of their charters that restrict them to a specific geographic area, and there is economies of scale. So
Yeah,
in the age of Zoom and all of those things like that, I think those land trusts would be better off if they picked up, 4, 5, 6 units in Harpswell or developed them in Harpswell, and it became part of their portfolio. They get the economies of scale, and it's much more viable and has much more assurance of continuing to exist for its intended purpose in Harpswell
Yeah.
with that stability.
I'm gonna hand it over to somebody in the room here, and thank you for that comment.
Well,
Yeah,
thank you for being such a resource, because certainly we can need
absolutely.
it. But the missing piece, I was going to go back and go through sort of what we're wrestling with here. But to speak to your issue, and we all agree, but we don't have the luxury of having units. And a little history, the local land trust has basically said, we're not interested now. We don't want to be part of this. Sometime in the future, maybe, but that's not what we do now. So that avenue isn't really open to us.
Well, and also I think he was mentioning other
Right.
land, housing trusts in the area. We have been in touch with them. They're not all similarly.
Right. The missing piece of this discussion is, yes, how do you raise funds for all this wonderful stuff? And at the last meeting, I went through some possibilities, but basically you need to do philanthropy so that there is a corpus, and you can you can buy what you need to do contractually, the local plumber, the local well driller, whatever it is, on some sort of retainer, if you will. But I don't want to get into there's a lot of weeds here, and we're really starting from, there's a coalition of the willing. You could do anything because nothing is set up. And what Sean has gone through is some of the various options. And so you can see the universe of which is going on in this field. The real question, if we want to set something like this up, is you need a group of folks who are willing to put in the energy, call the meetings, arrange for things to happen, because the town is saying that they can't do this any longer. They were conveners, but now they're done. So that means it needs to be a group of folks who start something, and when you create this, you will need to go and find funds for it. And that will, I think, I can't read it, is it Neil? Philanthropy seems to be the way to fill in because you don't have any money. And that would be my suggestion, because the philanthropic route is possible in Maine and in Harpswell, I believe.
Yeah, let's see.
Very much so. I've actually done that.
We're gonna move on to we're gonna keep the conversation flowing amongst other folks. We'll hop you back in at some point. Thank you, Neil.
Sure.
Yeah, let's see. We'll do another. I see Gregory. You have your hand up.
Yeah, hi. I have a question that is perhaps something to consider as you move forward. And the question is, what is the incentive for someone to donate property for such a housing trust?
I got it, Aaron. Yeah. We live in a town where many people care more about the well-being of the community than they do about maximizing their profitability or their sort of the economic incentives. I am able to be in town because the person that I rent from rents to me affordably because, I help shovel the snow and I carry my elderly neighbor's groceries up the stairs and stuff like that, right? There are people in town who that kind of community tie is more important to. Some of these people do it in informal situations like I do. I think, I see Peter Melroy on here. Some of these people do it as volunteer firefighters or as any number of the volunteers in town. The incentive is that it's something that people care about. It's the same incentive that gets people to donate their land for conservation. It's something that they're passionate about. They don't want to see, the conservation one, you don't want to see the woods that you grew up playing in or your grandkids were playing in to be cut down. And, you might want to support housing if you want to see there be children on your road who might be waiting for the school bus, or you might want to get a trick-or-treater to knock on your door every once in a while, that kind of thing. That's my answer anyways. I'm sure there are many other answers about why somebody might donate it, but there aren't separate incentives, I don't think, in particular, that are different from any other kind of philanthropic effort. Yeah.
Sean? Sean, I see Ann Benequist on there. I don't know if she'd like to say anything, but she's...
Nope.
but she was the owner for the land on the housing units on Route 123. So in what you said, she and her family thought that was a good thing to have, and I believe did it through the Brunswick Housing Trust at the time, but so it has been done.
It has been done in town already, yeah.
Thank you, Ann.
Jill,
Quick comment.
Yeah.
There are some tax advantage reasons for people to donate. And without going into the depth of which we did last time, there are reasons for various private trusts and folks who deal in philanthropy a lot to put money into these kinds of things.
Great. Jill, I saw you had a question earlier. No? Okay.
I'm just holding this.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, I guess that were you, okay. Let's see. Oh, we got another? Anne, yeah.
Yeah. I just want to say that, somebody was saying that, we want to bring more children in. And that was one of the motives that I had for wanting the Brunswick Housing Authority to develop some of my property. And, in fact, that's how I sold it to my children. I said, my children who were adults at the time. And I said, wouldn't you like to see some kids dancing on Benequist Way? And, that kind of appealed to them. So, but, it's discouraging to me to hear you all talking about the same issues that were my motivation in the first place for trying to make housing more diverse, because it's still a problem. And, I don't think it's gone anywhere. I think the first time I thought about giving some land was that my cousin said that Harpswell was becoming a place where only rich retirees from Texas could live around. And a pity, because I grew up in Bath and I spent all my summers in Harpswell. And, my parents lived across from in Lobsterman, and it was a more diverse community, I think, when I was a kid than it is now. And I would love to see that change. And there's not too much I can do living in Massachusetts in the winter, but if you do have any, opportunities for summer folks to help out, I would be happy to do it this summer.
Yeah,
and every other I'm here. Sure.
You're here today. It's greatly appreciated, and yeah, it's going to be volunteer stuff for a while, so all hands are welcome. Yeah.
You commented that it's still the same, there's still the same issues as there were decades ago. You were so generous, and one of the things I would hope is that a housing trust could keep this issue front of mind year over year, decade over decade. It wouldn't be a one-off project, but something that would grow with the town and respond to the housing needs of the town and the community. So we don't have another, I don't know, 20-plus year gap between really working hard to create housing for everyone.
Yeah. Let's see. I would love to hear from some of the folks who haven't spoken. If yeah, please.
It's impressive, the map that you have. Are any of the housing trusts that you have up there connected with the land trusts of that community?
Yeah. There's a really good graphic on the Midcoast Regional Housing Trust's website of their most recent project, which is a old farmhouse in a field that was donated to them, and they split off the immediate surroundings of the farmhouse to they're going to convert the farmhouse or rehab it, and they're going to add some more units there.
I guess what I was looking to see if any exist. There are probably many land trusts, but are they now, some of them in Maine, taken on the responsibility or the opportunity to have housing and land
Oh, I got
trusts?
you. Yeah, I was that was a long-winded way of saying that project, that donated property was split. The Conservation Land Trust is preserving the fields. The Housing Land Trust is doing the housing. This is in Rockland, I think. It's a collaboration. They are two separate entities. I don't know of anybody in Maine, any conservation land trusts in Maine that are doing housing. From conversations with Matt Newberg from Harpswell Heritage Land Trust, it appears to be a kind of an up-and-coming thing, or a discussed thing in the Conservation Land Trust area, but it's new still. I think that your neighbor there might be able to speak.
Yeah, I'll riff off that. I'm Emma. I'm the Lands and Stewardship Director at the Harpswell Heritage Land Trust, and there was a session at the most recent Land Trust conference this year about housing trusts. It was very well attended. There's a lot of interest in the land trust community in figuring out how land trusts all over the state can participate in this issue, and I think there were a number of examples of collaborative projects. There was one on MDI that was really recent where there's a really large parcel that was donated to conserve, and there was a sort of a couple acre section of it that wasn't of high conservation value, and so they could have just been like, well, we want to fast track this and just conserve the whole thing, but they slowed the project down and they worked with the local housing trust, and they actually carved that multiple acre portion out, and that became housing, and then all the rest of it that had really high conservation value became conservation land. And so I think there's a lot of projects like that happening, and I just wanted to make a comment that though the land trust didn't say we will become the housing trust in town, because we have a whole mission that we are involved in doing on our own. We very much want to be a part of the conversation and be a part of potentially some of these collaborative solutions.
Yeah, certainly. You all have expressed support in the idea, I should say, and it sounds like Harpswell Heritage Land Trust thinks that Harpswell having a housing trust is probably a good idea.
Yeah, and there's just one other thought that occurred to me that I thought I would offer when we were ruminating on the idea of why would someone want to donate to this cause or give their land or property or anything, which is this idea of environmental justice. If you think of sort of an extreme example of in an urban environment, the only affordable housing is the strip right next to the power plant, right? Where you have to breathe the smog, and it's noisy, and there's light pollution, and that's the only affordable place to live. And all the folks with means, they get to live out by the beach. That's sort of a fear that I have about this community is I think we all love living here because of all of the wonderful things it offers. You can be by the water, you can, experience all these wonderful things about the community. And there's sort of a risk that it's going to creep to a place where the only people who are really like allowed and privileged to access like the ocean and the beach and all these places have to have, a significant amount of economic means, and that's it becomes sort of like an inequitable like environmental justice issue.
Yeah, environmental justice. I think Matt could also speak to the like fishing and sort of like marine resources sort of like losing their access in various places as well, and like that's we want to preserve access for people to dig clams too, for example, or have their traps in the yard or whatever. There's like all sorts of different ways that this plays out in sort of like equitable. I don't know. You said it better than I did. Please, yeah.
Do any of the existing trusts, housing trusts, work with other organizations that have the same purpose, like Habitat for Humanity, for example? Do they? Yeah. Okay, I figured that.
They're often working together on projects.
If I could speak to that, Sean? And actually, I don't want to speak.
Yeah, I would let Cheryl go, and then go ahead right after that. Bob.
I would like Steve Norman to speak to that, because Steve has been a participant with Habitat and Harpswell Affordable Working Group, and is on the Housing Committee, and we have worked diligently to keep them informed as well. But please, Steve.
Thanks, Bob. Habitat was very interested in becoming a partner on a property that we unfortunately were not able to take advantage of. And it wasn't due to the fact that Habitat was there as a 501c3. They would have accepted it. The seller has had other thoughts on how to deal with the property. But my experience with Habitat goes back to '91 when it was started here in Brunswick Topsom. And they are very anxious to work with providing housing in Harpswell. I get a call from Adam, what's happening? He knows I'm on this committee. He says, I need to have a place for another house, and we don't have one yet. So, we are looking for that donated parcel that potentially could be spun off to the land trust, and we could have, a corner of it that isn't preservable for the kind of things that they do, and we could put a house or two in that corner. There is a lot of coordinating between different groups, and Habitat is just one of many. So,
go ahead, Cheryl.
First I want to thank everybody for being here and having this conversation. It's really great to hear from everybody. A couple of comments about, the one, does land trust work with other housing authority, but Bath Housing Authority has worked with the land trust down there. Now, they're still two separate entities, but by having a housing authority or housing trust inside your town, what it would allow is like, and I'll use the old school as an example. When the land trust was given that land, they couldn't take it, I believe, because of whatever bylaws or whatever you guys have, because it had a building on it.
I wasn't there at the time, but
The information that I was told, didn't allow you to take it because of that. If we'd had a housing trust at that time, it would have been something that the land trust could have worked with. They could have said, this section is beautiful to be preserved and shouldn't be built on. But, this can be used for housing. So I think they complement one another very well. Could they both be together as one entity? Yes. But that, it's what the town determines they want to do with it. And
there's been
It's what
conversation
the
about.
members of the community in town,
Yeah.
not
yeah,
the town itself.
Not the town. There's been conversation about, why people would want to do this. And what I would say is because I think most of us who have either lived here forever, live here, love Harpswell, we need to do this in order to keep our community like we have. We're a big volunteer community, We function on our volunteer fire departments. We function on volunteer committees. We function on Harpswell Agent at Home's amazing, should be a statewide program. We'll have people to replenish these things. So we're slowly losing them. I mean, we lost a whole school. Back in 2001, we knew that was happening. And we knew that we needed affordable housing then, which is why it was written into that comprehensive plan. We never got there. We had the building, thanks to Ann, off 123, but we didn't have an organization to continue that. And if we had, I like to believe we'd still have that school functioning and full of children. And we'd still have a lot of fishing families that have had to leave this town because they just can't afford to live in it. And we'd have a little more access still to those working waterfronts that we lost, that we've still been working so hard on. So when I look at why we need a housing trust, it's because this is how we maintain the fabric of our community. This is how we maintain continuing to be a working waterfront in our community.
Yeah, and I suppose that, I'm sorry to jump in.
Go ahead, John.
There are certainly advantages to doing things at scale. That's not wrong. But do we do nothing then? I suppose is no, we can't. We have to, if we need to do a small one, we need to do a small one. That's just where we are. And yeah, hopefully we can network in with other, the ball is starting to roll. There are more and more of these things, the housing trusts sort of in being formed. Like the one in Rockland is 4 years old, right? It's pretty new. So the infrastructure to share skills, knowledge doesn't exist yet, but I think that it certainly could soon. That's like a much bigger scope than what we're talking about today, which is like maybe getting the ball rolling on one in town. But yeah. Steve, yeah.
Sean, I'd just like to add, Debbie put together this list, which there's copies of in the back, and it's titled Maine Housing Trust. And when I developed the map that's in front of us, I went through each one of those. And I would encourage everybody to pick up that list and to go on the website, which is actually on this list. And it talks about what they do, who they are. It gives their mission statement. It's really, it will give the people who are interested in becoming members of this new housing trust an idea of, just what's going on and how and what's involved. It was very interesting for me as I put this together to read the different ones. If you look at that map closely, it has the mission statement of each of those 14 housing trusts that are on this list. So I would just encourage everybody here tonight to pick that up. And if you're listening on the internet, I think if you contact Margaret, she can forward this list to you. It would be just worth your time.
Yeah.
Hey, Sean. Bob here.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can I have a question to Neil, Mr. Frothingham again, please?
Yeah, definitely.
So, Mr. Frothingham, you have some great experience and wherewithal. Listening to us today, and we've been working on this for, close to 4 years, and we're still in infancy right now. But, tell us what our pitfalls are and what our negatives are. But, we're a bunch of volunteers, and we want to see something happen that hasn't happened in the last 20 years, which is difficult for me to accept. That the comprehensive plan stated it had initiative, and nothing was done. We have a housing committee today that is going to stay on this, and I would like to know where you think we should be going or how best to possibly start.
Yeah, I'm gonna, just lightly reframe the question to orient towards that, sort of like, what suggestions would you have for us to develop this project?
So what I would suggest is with your existing housing committee and with this group that you're forming, since the town can't be the land trust and can't staff the land trust, that you guys build relationships with the Waterville Community Land Trust and the Covenant Community Land Trust. And when an opportunity like the Harpswell School comes up, you have that relationship and you say to them, and you've already got them developed the relationship and developed an agreement with them, that they would be willing to accept that property and develop the land trust concept on that property or another similar property.
Yeah.
And so for them, it becomes 1 or 2 units in a regional portfolio, and it's 1 or 2 units that's part of 56 units in the case of Covenant Community Land Trust. Now they're at 58. And so every time their board hears an issue or management of the land trust here's an issue, they're solving it for 58 units at a time, not 2 in Harpswell and 4 separately somewhere else. And I think that that's the way to go. There are also some other programs here that you could be taking advantage of, like the USDA Mutual Self-Help Sweat Equity Program, which would allow construction of homes on the land in Harpswell. I have the name of the organization for that. I actually have a draft 5-page report that consultants format that I will forward along to you.
Amazing.
As your meeting. But I have had the unfortunate experience in my role as a consultant of being hired by a philanthropic funder or a state or federal public funder to go into some entity that they've given money to for housing, and housing's been developed on it, and they're out of compliance with their reporting requirements or something like that because the project's not spending off the cash to support staff and stuff like that. And the board at that point essentially says to the funder, here's the keys and where would you like us to sign over the deed? And
so it sounds like
then the housing gets, taken over by them and auctioned off. And
so it sounds like as far as the solutions-oriented stuff, you might be suggesting that we develop relationships with other community land trusts. We have been in touch with several of them and have had conversations with not all of them, but I would say a third, especially the ones that are on sort of like the southern edge of the area here. We've spoken with.
Get a memorandum of get an MOU in place with 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 of them or 5 of them, because each of them has different niches for different kinds of housing.
Yeah. Aaron, do you have a?
Yeah, if I may.
Yeah. And just, can I make a quick note before you launch into this? I would also love to hear some from, give people who haven't spoken a chance to jump in if, after Aaron's, if there's any.
Okay. I mean, what Neil is suggesting is the best way to go.
Absolutely.
If it was possible to go that way. So there does not seem to be interest from neighboring places to take on our issues. It's just problems with no benefit. But at any rate, what I did was I put together a straw mission statement that we could, that it looks like what it would be like, and if it's not set in stone by any means. Harpswell Housing Trust's mission is to see that every individual with a tie to Harpswell, I'll get back to that, has the ability to obtain affordable, safe, and stable housing. The trust strategically acquires, develops, and manages properties to keep housing within reach. The Housing Trust partners with other organizations as needed to achieve this goal. And to define ties to Harpswell, and this gets to the social equity issue. An individual or family unit is defined as having ties to Harpswell. They currently reside in Harpswell, currently works or owns a business in Harpswell, has school children who are or will be eligible to attend a school in SAD 75, has relatives, spouse, parents, children, grandparents who reside in Harpswell. It basically deals with all kinds of folks, and we could change this, obviously.
Yeah,
that's a suggestion.
The Kennebunkport one has a very similar sort of like articulation of who they might be working to get housing for. I guess that like not to put you on the spot, Matt, but like I'm pretty interested to hear your thoughts on sort of like what you see as far as the fishing community's perspective, and or just your own, on housing, if you want.
Yeah, so like,
I was more here in a listening capacity than a speaking capacity. The only thing that I would caution you of going forward would be an employment type of covenant for a lot of those industries, not just the fishing industry, but like the tourism industry, the food industry. A lot of those types of employment are seasonal, and those folks have to potentially leave town at certain times of the year to find work elsewhere. Mm-hmm. So I would hope that there would be some flexibility there, totally. If one fishery happened to die off and they had to find a job somewhere else, but they bought it with fishing funds, that we can look back on something like that. Besides that, I'm just kind of here to listen.
Cool. Yeah, so, maybe like recognizing that a lot of these jobs are like 8 months out of the year.
Right.
Like, we need to have some it can't be like absolutely full-time year-round.
Exactly, yeah.
No, that makes that makes sense to me. I think that, value the input. Thanks.
I just want to put in a vote to remain local and small. I know that Mr. Frothingham thinks size is important. I would disagree. Well, size is important, and local is important. We lose the flavor if we get too big.
Yeah.
And Harpswell has flavor.
Thanks. They're like, he's speaking to a thing that does happen with some of these projects where if it's 1 or 2 units, it's hard to keep up on the paperwork. It's a reasonably big commitment for somebody to do, or, one of the 5 people who lives in a place or whatever. Something that comes to mind is that like community land trusts or housing trusts often have boards that are made up of 1/3 residents, 1/3 sort of like town people, neighbors, sort of people who are in the area, interested public members, and then 1/3 sort of like other organizations in the area. So that would be like very probably like we would hope that, or in that case, like Harpswell Heritage Land Trust would likely be, have a position available to them on the board of housing trust, or maybe the housing committee could have, or the select board or whatever. Like, if you build in other institutional support into your trust, then you are hopefully adding some resilience. Yeah. And yeah, Harpswell's a fun, we're all here because we like it, I imagine.
John, if I could just jump in for a second.
I love the word flavor, like you're absolutely right on that. But what it touched on for me is some of the conversations about what does the housing look like, and I think that brings it up, for the character and stuff. So what I like people to think about is it doesn't have to look anything different than what we already have in this town. And as far as apartment complexes, look at the Schofield farm. Somebody took a farmhouse and turned it into apartment units. There's several of those types of housing. So if somebody donated a large house like that, it could still look like that large house and maybe have 4 housing units inside of it. So I think keeping the flavor is important, but it doesn't necessarily mean we have to just build new or make it look different.
Yeah, or that it has to be exactly
around.
the same as it always has been.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cheryl actually makes a good point there, and that's something that I think you guys in all housing trusts should focus on. If you look at the construction in this country as a whole over the last, say, 20 or 30 years, there is no shortage of bedrooms. We have built more than enough bedrooms in this country to house all the people that are looking for housing. The problem is the family dynamic has changed now. When there used to be around 3.2 people per house, now we're down to about around 1.8. Yeah. So I would try to focus a fair amount of attention on some of these larger houses, like, say, Schofield, and maybe some outreach to talk to people about, I know there's Nesterly and stuff, and I'm not sure how successful that's been, but the bedrooms are here. We just need to figure out a way to utilize those bedrooms that are already existing, and get them at an affordable rate, for others, but also offer some sort of benefit, for maybe that person that has the 5 extra bedrooms or something like that. So I think there's real possibility and a real future and kind of looking what's already here. And then that doesn't change the flavor of Harpswell too much either, because I certainly agree with that as well. So I think there's a large number of empty bedrooms in this town that can be utilized.
Absolutely. And like we were talking about earlier with people looking to downsize, or people who find that they can't do the upkeep as much on these big old places as they get older. That's that's the role that I play in the house that I live in, right? Is I'm the person who's gonna climb up on the ladder or whatever, and this is that's a micro example of it. But I also wouldn't want to live in the spare bedroom of my landlord, right? I like having my own space, and so we can figure out creative ways to get these bedrooms back into circulation. That doesn't mean having to be a boarding house, or being sharing a kitchen with somebody who likes to cook their breakfast at 2 a.m. or whatever. A little bit of separation. The spaces are there, but they aren't they've been left the same as they were when there was a bunch more people living in each house, and that's not what we're doing anymore. We need to figure out a way to get these back into circulation. I think that's a super good point. Yeah.
Let me step in again. My involvement, both as a former EMT and as a member of the construction crew on Harpswell Aging at Home, has gotten me into a lot of these houses that we're talking about. And when there's one elderly person living in a 5-bedroom house that potentially could become a duplex very easily, I mean, you've got a septic tank that was designed for that 5-bedroom house. You've got a well that services that 5-bedroom house, and you've got one tiny little person using it. Well, a Harpswell Housing Trust could help that person access funding and maybe design expertise to create that. And it wouldn't change the flavor at all in this community. It would only enhance it. So I think that's one of the, we're not going to build mega apartments. we can't. There are state codes that said you've got to have sprinkler systems. Well, you're not going to put a sprinkler system on a well. So, we're going to do these onesies and twosies right through. And that's kind of my take on it.
Is that something that Habitat for Humanity would be interested in assisting with, do you think, Steve? Like maybe building that said house into a duplex, is that something they do, or is that something you think that?
That's actually the house we were looking at, located on Bailey's Island. It's a big single-family house. We looked at that with Habitat, with our Harpswell Aging crew, and said, this could become a duplex, and in addition, we could add an ADU. So we could, like you said, Bob said, we could have 3 units on that parcel. Unfortunately, that one went south. So, but yes, that's
like
exactly what,
interest there.
and Habitat, I mean, Adam was with us on that walkthrough, and, he was very excited. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that points to another, why somebody might be interested in doing, supporting the housing trust or donating or whatever. It doesn't have to be donation.
It allows that person to stay in that home.
A lot of times that's the difference. Having, Harpswell Aging at Home is good, and it's nice to have handrails places, and we have a great fire department who's able to come get people to a hospital. But it's actually way better to have a neighbor that can do all those things a lot of the time. It's way easier, faster, whatever. And it's nice, bumping into people is a good part of what living in community is.
It also helps provide a small flow of income for a lot of people that are on fixed incomes.
I think
with the ever-rising cost of living. That's certainly something that could incentivize people,
Yeah, if your new boiler is going to cost $15,000
right.
or whatever. Yeah.
Exactly, but you got $1,000 coming in every month from somebody that's also helping shovel your driveway and lug your groceries in.
It might make the difference.
That's an added benefit for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I also work with Harpswell Aging at Home. We and the town really tried to get Nesterly to come into the town. If you don't know what Nesterly is, it is in Maine, but in other big cities particularly. And what it is you have an extra room usually, and a college student needs a place to stay off campus. So we really thought that maybe we could get something like that in Harpswell. We don't know the reason why it hasn't taken off, other than maybe what you said, is that our homes, the homes right now are designed not as a duplex or not, it would be a boarding house, and people probably are just not interested in going down that road. However, if indeed, with Habitat and Harpswell Aging at Home, our mission, Harpswell Aging at Home, is age in your home. And so if indeed we could work it such that we could add a wall and make it such that it's not a boarding house, but you have your own privacy, I think it could work. I know Habitat, as Steve said, would like to see it. I think Harpswell Aging at Home would like to see it.
A lot of these conversions are not super technical stuff. It's not architectural stuff usually. It's putting up a wall, it's putting in a small kitchenette and tying it into what the existing plumbing. A lot of these places have 4 or 5 bathrooms already. They have, they have the stuff. They just, yeah.
And so I'd like for the housing group to keep in mind, Nesterly has a great ability. It's almost like a dating game. I know that sounds crazy, but they have computerized this system so that the renter and the rentee are matched. No, I don't smoke. No, I don't like animals, etc. And they match the renter to the person that owns the house. That's one. 2, they give an option. If the renter says, I'll shovel the walkway, they get a discount on their rent. And the rent does not, all the headaches of renting goes through Nesterly, i.e. Nesterly pays the renter, collects some money from the rentee. So it's a great system, but I think if we could get Habitat, Nesterly, and Harpswell Aging at Home in the same room with your committee or the housing trust, it may really work.
Cheryl and then Aaron.
I just want to say thank you for bringing up Nestily. It's an incredible program. My understanding is, sadly, why it didn't take off in our town, in a couple of other places, is it's all online. They have to apply and be online and have access, and we did not have the infrastructure set up to walk people through on how to do that. I mean, they do background checks, they do everything. There's all these safety features within it. And it doesn't have to just be a college student, you know, you could be an older woman that wanted a single mother with her kids to come stay with you or whatever. There's all these different options, but it's all online. You have to apply online, you have to be able to access online, you have to be able to do it online. And we live in a community, which I know at least our district, overwhelming number of people do not have access to online, knowing how to navigate it. So if we could fix that infrastructure part of it, I think we would see it start to grow.
Okay, the only thing I'm bringing up is all these are wonderful ideas that a proposed housing trust will wrestle with. And I'm sure they're gonna be open to it, but right now, what we're really trying to do is get from nothing to an organization. And then they can deal with all these things, and I'm sure that they will want to.
So what's our next step?
Yeah, I mean, February 9th, to start to like actually get the ball rolling on a trust, you need 3 people to make up a board, and you need a mission statement, and you need to file with the state. It's actually not that much work to do that first part.
I volunteered to.
Oh yeah, and Aaron's already volunteered to do the paperwork for us.
You got a group of people.
We just need people.
Who are willing
Yeah.
to be on a board, which has a responsibility, because it's gonna be reporting, and as Neil had said, one of the things that causes real problems is that the interest wanes, people leave or whatever, and then the reports don't get filed. I'm actually dealing with an HOA right now that doesn't exist, okay, but we still have to plow the road, because nobody filed any paperwork for like 7 years, okay? So those are the kinds of things that you want to make sure when you set up that you can cover. He's completely correct about that. But there are ways to deal with all this stuff. Anyway, I think the next thing to do is have another meeting.
Sean, you did have a quick administrative question. Julie requested that you maybe offer a Zoom link for that February 9th meeting. I think that would be a great idea.
Great. I don't know how to do that, but lots of people do. I'm sure we can do that.
Sean, you're younger than us.
Yeah. It's true. You had something? Great. Well, yeah. I think we got, it's exciting to talk about like all of the ways that this might be used and might do cool stuff and fix problems. Like, I don't know. Personally, when I think about what this housing trust will do, my vision is like very close to what Matt was describing, and of the conversions of old homes or whatever. And Cheryl was talking about keeping the same flavor and keeping people in their place, and the place that they've been for like, all of their life sometimes or whatever. While still having some more young people come into town. And like, that's what it looks like to me when I think about it, but it can be so many different things, I guess. But we do need to start it for it to do different things. Are there any thoughts or imagination sort of like ideas that people might want to share about what a housing trust might look like for you, or how you could see it playing out, or if it might fit into your space or life or whatever? Well,
Can I talk?
yeah, please.
So we're on the Housing Committee. We can't do the Housing Trust, but we're all on the Housing Committee because we know how crucial the need for housing is in Harpswell. And the idea that some of you could make this happen, I'm kind of excited for you, honestly. I think there are a lot of people who would help. Certainly, all of those folks that talk at the Housing Coalition were very, very enthusiastic. And I think the opportunity to do something good like this would really affect your lives in a very positive way. I don't mean to leave you all out that are on the Zoom link over there, but are there any of you who think, you know what, I might give this a shot? All right, so there's some people who appear that they would at least like to try it. I mean, you would be in charge of what kind of housing trust you would want. There's a lot of stuff to go over in terms of would we do it this way, would we do it this way, but how exciting to be in at this ground zero point. So bless those of you who are like, yeah, I think I might do this, and if there's anybody else, speak up or go home and think about it and then speak up. Thank you.
Wait a minute.
I guess.
Yes.
Go ahead, Aaron.
You're not arguing with me, are you, Aaron?
No, I have a question. I have a question. Certainly when arguing with you,
Better
I've
not.
lost many of those. At any rate, the issue I'm saying is the town committee, housing committee, cannot be the trust. But individuals who are members of the housing committee are not precluded from being members of the trust.
Yeah, no, I'm going to be on both.
Yeah, I mean, so just saying, okay, you guys, now we're giving it to you, and we're interested, we'll see what you guys do. Well, you guys have, the people on the housing committee have a lot of expertise and a lot of shared history, and it would be helpful if a couple, not enough to be dominant on the board, but a couple of you would be part of the board.
Thanks, Aaron. I'm not super used to facilitating stuff that also has Zoom, so I apologize to Zoom people that I haven't been able to catch hands raised or whatever.
Sean, I'm willing to serve on the Housing Trust as well.
Great.
And
there we go.
As a liaison from the Housing Committee to the Housing Trust.
Amazing. Carol, I see that you are unmuted. Did you have?
Yeah, I just wanted to say this is really exciting, and excuse my voice. I have a nasty virus that's going around. This is awesome that the town is doing this. Like Anne, I'm currently a summer resident, but my family's moving up full time in June. And my background is in affordable housing. I've spent the last 15 years doing affordable housing, so I'm happy to help however I can.
Yeah, great. Thanks for being here. Anybody else out in Zoom land? Anybody else here? Okay, cool. We have so many amazing people with ties to Harpswell. It's really cool that there are two people with affordable housing or housing trust experience that showed up on Zoom today. That's and appreciate you both speaking. And I guess we'll make sure that we do a Zoom thing for the meeting on February 9th.
Do we need to pass around a list?
I think that it's gone around.
I mean, the folks who said we're interested, I don't know who you are, so yeah.
Yeah, thanks for checking. And everybody who's interested on Zoom has
Margaret,
commented or can follow up with Margaret, I hope. And Neil, if you could send along the resources that you had mentioned, that would be much appreciated. Thank you for calling our attention to those.
Glad to help.
Awesome. I think that I am going to close it out then. Thanks so much for your attendance and thoughts and comments. hope to see you all at the next one. All right, have a good night, everyone.